I think the assumption for a lot of people, especially people who've never experienced anything such as this, tragic, any violence, is the assumption is that if they have someone in jail, the process goes quickly. And unfortunately, it doesn't. It took approximately 4.5 years for this process to happen just to get to trial. Every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks, they would have a status hearing, and normally I would take the whole day off of work because after that you're just mentally and physically drained. And I realized that after that I would just kind of go home and lay on the sofa and just go to sleep. But we would go there and sit there for 3 hours, 2 hours for something that would last 2 or 3 minutes. And that's why some people can't go, but thank God I was lucky enough to be able to attend each and every single one. And I just wanted to see his face. I wanted him to see my face. And I wanted him, even though there's all those people there, for him to see my face consistently each and every time that I went. I would sit in the front row in a place where he would be able to see me and look at me every single time he came out. There were times he stuck up his middle finger at me. He would laugh. He made sure that he tried to give me the impression that he was going to beat this and he didn't care about anything. But I would always maintain my composure, like it didn't matter to me. Even though when I walked out of there, I felt like I cannot believe he just did that. But I wanted him to know that he was not going to break me down more than he already did. I was always afraid, not for myself, I was afraid for my family, that we would run into them in the street and that something would happen to them. Obviously, my mom, being a strong woman, was one that really wasn't as afraid at that time. I think moms are kind of, you just somehow build up this strength for moments during trial, during the sentencing, seeing their family. I don't know, it's this energy and this strength that I can't describe. That's why I say sometimes it's like we step outside ourselves, and that's not us sitting there. That's not us on the stand, because we know that at home we're broken, we're weak, we're afraid. But when we face the person who killed our son or a child, none of that matters for those moments. But it was a really long process, and it was actually really shocking that it took so long when they had all the evidence there. The earliest cases usually are probably 2 years, and mine's took a little longer because he was, they needed to make sure they couldn't make any mistakes. I believe, and I know, that he has beat the system many, many times before. He actually should have been in jail. He's a felon over and over again. And he knew how to beat the system, probably because of his handicap. And the prosecutors needed to make sure that everything was done as perfect as possible, because if not, he would have been able to wheel himself right out of that courtroom. And he is a danger to society. This isn't something that just started randomly doing that night. Like I said, he's a serial killer that just got caught, and he's been beating the system for years and years. He was 29 when this happened. He was, I believe, 11 or 12 years old when he first got shot. He's raised in a family of gangs, and he was a leader of a gang, from my understanding, and he has a lot of power, which is also really shocking to me to think that someone who's in a wheelchair, paraplegic, can have so much power. But I guess as long as his hands are working and he could pull a trigger, I guess that's all he needs. I always would look at Andrew Ruiz's lawyer And I would always wonder how he can do what he does for a living. But towards the end, I kind of understood. I think sometimes he probably feels good about defending someone who needs to be defended. I knew that the more he got to know this killer, the more he was having trouble defending him. But that's what he had to do. I think the legal system works by luck. It worked on my behalf, but it doesn't work on everybody's. I see that there's a lot of money being wasted. Sometimes I would sit there and they told us to be at court at 9 o'clock, that court would start at 9:30, but I would notice that the bailiff and the court reporters and whoever it is that helps the judge, they would just be waiting and waiting. The judge would come out, the attorneys weren't there yet, he'd have to go back, call a recess, and you would sit there for hours and hours and hours, and these people are getting paid at that moment for doing nothing, for just waiting. And so could that be why it takes years for things to finally go to trial? You know what, to say the system works or doesn't work is really a tough question. The system can't work if we don't pressure them to work on our behalf. We have to create noise and come together, and we have to have the community speak out. I mean, you just can't say, I know who killed my son, but the police aren't doing anything, which is what I hear all the time. But they need evidence. You just can't convict someone without hardcore evidence. The community, the friends, the young people, whoever it is, needs to put their fear to the side for the moment and say something. It's just not going to happen. I think by visiting and communicating with the detective, but at the same time giving him his space that he needed and respecting him, understanding that he worked hundreds of cases, that he was in the Harrison district and my son wasn't the only case. I think understanding that, we were able to develop a relationship. What they see daily in their lives, in their jobs, is horrifying. And I think as long as we can try to imagine being in their shoes for a little while, then maybe they can imagine being in our shoes as a good parent and also give us that same respect. We just have to try to work and develop relationships with them. I think that's really important in order to get the system to work for us. I almost feel very sad for the other moms who have unsolved cases or have no idea who it is that killed their child. I just know that you can never give up because it's not impossible. I just think that we need to give the detectives that are working the case some respect and some credit. And again, the detective that worked my case is absolutely amazing, and I didn't realize it always at the time because we would bump heads. But I always try to give him his space and his respect because I knew that I needed him on my side. Andrew Ruiz was sentenced to 99 years for the murder of my son, Manny Roman, for attempted murder of my stepson, and for intentional discharge of a firearm. He got 99 years.